Hey, what's up? Ezekiel the Barber back with another hair vlog video for you. We'll get right into it. My man likes to use a 2-guard with the grain. I'm using the Wahl 5-star senior clipper. So we'll go ahead and pop that 2-guard on there and we'll get right to work. It's the 2-guard, 2 Babylis guard. So I'll basically slap that 2-guard on and go against the grain. This is gonna give me that true number 2 length. Once again, I love the Wahl 5-star senior clipper. I mean, this clipper can cut through all types of hair, almost effortless. Now, if you do have any issues on tougher hair, you just always want to make sure on African-American hair, especially, that you just comb everything out and then try it again, run that guard through there. You want to go over it until everything is nice and smooth. Everything is as smooth as everything else that you have just cut. That's the whole, main ordeal here, is to just make sure that everything is nice and smooth. So I'll keep everything combed out. I'll go over it a few times. Just make sure everything's nice and even. And we'll do that all the way around the haircut. I'll pick everything out, loosen that hair up a little bit, make it easier for the blades to cut through the hair, easier on the client. Just makes everything, just a better overall experience. All right, so we've picked it out a little bit more. Now we'll attempt to get a little bit more hair off there. We'll use the same technique, that you basically see me using. I'll go up, I'll go back. As long as everything is cutting nice and smooth, then we're good to go. I'm good to continue on with my path. Now, as you can see, these clippers are pretty much, tearing through this hair, pretty much at ease for the most part. No problem here. That's why, this is my only corded clipper that I keep in my arsenal. Wahl 5-star senior. I love this clipper. This is exactly the clipper that I started cutting hair on, to tell you the truth. My mom got me this clipper for Christmas when I was 9 years old. Shout out to my mom, love you. But yeah, I love this clipper. Great clipper. Definitely does work. You could rely on this clipper for years as long as you keep it clean, do the routine maintenance. I'll do videos to cover how to do that later on. All right, yeah, so you just want to, get everything nice and even. Cut north, south, east, and west from every angle. Definitely just want to be very thorough. When I created this channel, I just wanted to give the user kind of the real experience, the type of haircuts and clients that they could see, the type of haircuts that they want, and literally how I went about trying to achieve these hairstyles for these clients. So you get a chance to see the real natural stroke for the most part, the good majority of the haircut. I'm just using that 2-guard going, every which way. Every angle. Now these are definitely, a lot of the tricks of the trade. A lot of tough hair to cut has been African-American hair. And as long as you know how to cut it and, what to do, it shouldn't be too hard. Anybody could definitely achieve these type of haircuts. But as long as your system is right, you're doing things right, you should have no problem. So around this ear area is a little bit of weight. I just want to kind of get in there, get those hairs out of there. Smooth that area out a little bit more as well. All right, everything's starting to look even. I'll just kind of work around. And since this is just one overall even length, there's not really a fade that he likes to do here. The main goal is just to literally make sure that this overall 2 is a really smooth and even cut all the way around. Now, this client likes to taper the back, which is like a ball taper, and then he'll do a slight taper on the sides. Now, I went to the 1.5 guard. I like to use this guard to kind of help me transition and create a slight fade into that 2 that I'm using on top. So I'll use this 1.5 just kind of on the edges in the areas that you see me using it, kind of in this temple area, right where we do like a slight taper. Now, I'll use this technique on pretty much every haircut. Let's say if I use a 2 on top, then to clean the edges up, I'll use like a 1 right there on all of my little edges, just to kind of take some of that hard line off of the sides of the haircut, to where it makes it easier for me to kind of give them a cleaner lineup, take some of that weight off there. So I'm using that 1.5 guard, just kind of on the bottom, transitioning into that 2, just kind of makes things a little smoother. And a lot of times you won't be able to tell the complete difference anyways. Now, even though I use a 2 against the grain, I'm using this technique, which is this 1.5 guard. I'm using that to go with the grain to kind of clean up his haircut. So wherever his hair grows, I just kind of follow that and I go with the grain. So even though, once again, I've used the 2 guard against the grain, I'm using a 1.5 with the grain to kind of clean up any sticklies or pricklies. Just makes the haircut that much cleaner and smoother. These are some of the like good secrets and techniques, of how I achieve, cleaner haircuts, and what I was taught as well. Okay, so once again, we'll go with the grain. If you go against the grain, you don't want to do that because that's going to take off more hair than you really want to. You initially used a 2 guard there against the grain. So if you use a 1.5 against the grain, it's going to give you a 1.5, which is shorter. It is what it is. You don't want to do that. So in this case, I'm still using the Wahl Senior 5-star clipper. I'm just going to close that lever all the way up, which is going to give me close to a bald look. So I just want to create, my first hard guideline. Now, this client doesn't like a super high taper. He just likes, to keep everything kind of low pro there. So we'll just kind of keep this taper low. We'll set our first guideline. Once we set our guideline with the 0, then we'll either throw the 1 guard or the 1/2 guard on there. In this case, I chose to go with the 1/2 guard. And I'll make my next guideline anywhere from a 1/4 inch to about 1 inch wide. And I'll start with the open lever. Now, since I'm going from the 0 stubble look, I decided to take the guard off and just use a open clipper, which is basically essentially almost like a 1/2 to a 1, and fade that 0 into that 1 where I just used the 1 guard. Hopefully that makes sense and doesn't really complicate things. But if we're going in steps and I'm using 0, 1, 2 right in this zone right here to taper him out, then I want to, use a technique that's gonna blend that 0 into that 1. So a lot of times, a open Wahl clipper will suffice that. It will definitely achieve that goal for you. All you have to do is open that clipper up and it'll blend easy from 0 to 1. Now you have to open and close your lever, of course. That's what that lever is there for, but that's how you blend. I mean, blending is all a matter of opening and closing that lever in the zones that you need to. Now, even though my taper isn't perfect yet, I like to cut to a look. So he likes to do like a shadow taper. So I've decided to start shadow tapering the side of his hair. Right now I'm using the 1/2 guard, and I just want to use that 1/2 guard just kind of right around the ear area, not go too high. I'm going with the grain here. And once again, he's not looking for a bald taper or anything, just a shadow taper. So I'm using that 0 guard, opening and closing the lever, just kind of right there in the zones that you see me using the clipper. I'm not going too far into his haircut, just right there on the edges. I'm just basically using this technique to soften out that 2 length and that 1.5 that I used in there. So right at the bottom, I used a 1/2 guard. That's gonna kind of give him like a shadow look. Now we'll use that same technique here. We'll use that half guard. We'll close that clipper all the way up. We'll go just around the ear. We won't go too high. We'll comb it out. So now I've decided to start lining them up. I've grabbed the Babylis trimmers. We're gonna clean up around the neck area. So since I cut to a look, I just wanna make sure that everything is even and clean as possible all the way around. So you can see areas in here that need to be cleaned up in the taper. So, you know, this is basically art to me. So I just bring my whole haircut together. I'll do the lineup, try to make everything as smooth as possible. There's still some areas in the taper where I wanna, you know, clean things up. Wanna make this lineup as even as possible to the other side. This is kind of the shadow taper that we've created on this side. So this is kind of what I use in my head as, you know, the side that I wanna go by and pattern. We've done a lot of work here. I like the way it's looking compared to the other side. There's more hair off. So this is basically me bringing my art together in my mind. Now keep in mind, every barber is different. Every barber has their own techniques on how they would basically achieve this very same haircut. But that's the beauty in it. You know, you do what, you know, you were taught or how you choose to cut. This is basically how I chose to attack this haircut. So we're gonna start doing the lineup. You don't have to go too hard. I like to kind of keep it natural. I don't like to dig in too far to the hairline. I like to make everything nice and clean. All you have to do is just go really smooth. Let the clippers do the cutting. Everything's starting to come together here. So I like the way that this side of the haircut looks. I just want to clean everything up as smooth as possible. Once again, there were some areas that I wanted to cover in the back of his taper. I have to clean the other side up to, you know, make it match this as much as possible. I like the way it's looking here. So we'll just continue on. There's a little hair here. I always like to clean up these fuzzies. Anytime you're around the ear area, you just want to make sure you clean that up. So now it's time to just try and match my work. So I just want to connect the dots. Whatever I did on the left, I want to do on the right. Here I'm using the Babylis cordless trimmer. Once again, I love this clipper as far as doing lineups. So we're just gonna use a really light touch, let the clippers do the work. All right, so it's time to match what we did on the left-hand side. So I'm just gonna follow the curve and create a curve in his lineup. We're looking to go for the points just like the other side, so I'm just looking to point this out. Now, periodically, I always like to look at the mirror, get that second advice. Really good friend for a second opinion is the mirror for a barber. So I always like to go to that mirror just to kind of make sure everything's, you know, looking symmetrical, everything's looking even. You just want to use a really light touch, especially with these clippers. They do such a really good job, especially when they're sharpened, that all you have to do is give, extremely light touch, and those lines are, you know, they're pretty creative. They're in there. All right, so we'll just go over everything nice and even. All right. Get in those corners. Now right now I'm going to the Andis cordless trimmer. These are also sharpened. Definitely like to follow up after the Babylis trimmers with these trimmers. Just my preference once again. All right, so we'll go ahead and get behind the ears. You want to always make sure you pull that ear, clean all the hair up. Get behind there, clean everything up, use the corner of the clipper. Make sure that you don't touch that ear. That definitely hurts, or you could cut them. You want to just go really smooth. Open the ear up enough to where you could see it and get the hair out of there. And then right now I'm just attempting to literally just clean up all the little fuzzies around the back. The haircut's coming together now. I told you I like to cut to a look. So I like to make sure that everything looks good. So with this taper, I want to bald out a little bit better from the bottom, make sure everything smooths out. I'm gonna reline them up on this side. Make sure everything's nice and crispy. You like to always brush and comb everything out. Use the corner of the clipper to get behind the ear, pull that ear. All right. Looks like we're headed somewhere. Definitely love the cordless trimmers and just the whole cordless game. I mean, it was a game changer. Nothing worse than having tons of cords when you're trying to cut hair or line people up and you're in and out of clippers and you've used all kinds of clippers and everything's getting tangled up. This is why, I have one corded clipper in my arsenal, and my preference is the Wahl 5-Star Senior. Everyone has their preference. Love this clipper. So I'm just going over everything, making sure everything's nice and clean. I know I used that 2 guard. I wanted to go over everything again with the 2, and then back again with the grain with the 1.5, just to clean it up a bit. And now here we're just using the Andis cordless trimmer. Now this is not the T-edger blade, it's just the outliner blade. I love this blade, especially on kids. I don't have to worry about taking off their eyebrow when I'm trying to line them up, like with longer, T-edger blade type of clippers. So definitely a go-to here. So once again, I'm just, cutting everything to a look, just making sure everything looks the way, it normally looks when I give him his haircut. Everything looks, pretty normal here. I like to brush out any hair, just kind of keeps everything nice and clean, make sure everything looks nice and consistent. All right, this is basically how everything normally looks when I cut his hair. All right, perfect. So now my man's ready for the hot sauce. We're just gonna give him a little aftershave. I like to use the blow dryer. It kind of keeps everything nice and cool, so it won't irritate them, but definitely, a much needed process. Those clippers can have bacteria and germs. So until they get home and clean this stuff up, you definitely, always want to use some type of astringent. Okay, cool. Well, it looks like we wrapped up another hair vlog. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Like, subscribe. Until next time.
ThunderCatzent Entertainment.